I'm CouchCube and welcome to my second No Man's Sky video. After update 3.2.1, we're now looking at 3.2.2, which wasn't major, no huge moving around, but I want to go deeper with the changes of this game. Quick background story, I bought this game on launch, played about 50 hours of it on the first couple of weeks, obviously had the devastation that everyone else had, then went back to it for Atlas and the next update, but had a big break up until this new companions material. And in between those two dates, we've seen huge amounts of graphical improvements, so this is something I'm exploring more. I'm going to more planets and I'm moving away from that campaign / tutorial stuff and looking at a bit of base level base building. There's some really good news with the base building additions, and this was probably added with the next update, I can't remember, but it allows you to create a Stargate portal thing that takes you back to the nearest station in that galaxy. Holy hell, is this handy. It also means that any station you're in, anywhere in the galaxy that you discovered, will have one of these gates that takes you back to said base. So now there is opportunity for investment in a singular planet. Now there is that ability to get cool stuff going on and come back to it. There was that nomadic theme with the original No Man's Sky game loop, I think, that meant that you weren't gathering cool stuff and possessions and having a great base to go back to. Now this brings me on to something I didn't look at in the previous video. By the way, this is a follow-up. I'll put the previous video link in the description. I only spoke about the populated and changed bases or stations. I didn't actually show them off, and this was a really good opportunity to, and show off a little bit of the ship design adjustments, which we will get to at some point. That has had injection of detail, not enough in my eyes. I think I'm in a starter biome in regards to the algorithm and its variety, because that kind of bleeds into a lot of other things, which we'll get to in a second. But I want it on record as saying these stations are vastly improved, having that Stargate there as well, and all those kiosks with all the races offering stuff like missions and improvements to your weapons. That was there before, but it just wasn't that intuitive. There's also a merchant trader who does all this weird scrap stuff, so I'm really happy with the options and the additions that are now within every station in the game. What I was also mostly looking forward to, and what was hard to ignore from all of the cool new footage about No Man's Sky, is the addition to start mucking around with your appearance. On a massive level, you can actually change your race. Doesn't have anything to do with your stats, not a class builder by any stretch, but there's a hell of a lot of options here off the bat. And there's some unlockables. Not too sure how I do it. I wish it would tell me, because I'd be very incentivized to get some cool armor or change into a cooler race. But I love this. I love the amount of colors. Being able to tweak and muck around with everything right down to your banner and backpack and boots is everything I wanted from a No Man's Sky custom appearance. The ship customization is at the back of these stations as well, and you can imagine my excitement as I approached it after tweaking what I looked like in so much detail. There was none. There is an upgrade tab, that's about it. It might be because I have a low-level grunt ship, but I was really disappointed that I couldn't put a little spoiler or tint the windows on my awesome cruiser. You can take the Need for Speed out of the man, but you can't take the man out of Need for Speed. But just so it's hit home, the portal means that you are now looking for a cool planet, not just looks cool, but has really good resources that you can set up a permanent or semi-permanent base on and then go back to instantly, thus creating like a lucrative trade route and just enabling so much more to get done and be done with this ability to just jump around and not have to get in that damn ship and look for all the materials to get it off the planet in the first place. That kind of stuff can start doing your head in. But all of this tech and new material is made to make that life easier. I forgot to put the multi-tool boltcaster thing on. I'm about 9 hours in, and I hadn't actually come across any formidable monsters or aggressive planet inhabitants. You did get a lot of that on the base game. Some of them were just mad and went for you as soon as you landed. But this was a bit more interesting for me. An event came up that was very new. I haven't seen these things before, so this was very reminiscent of a certain scene, and it went tits up, but not with John Hurt. That was pre-Boltcaster footage, and I also couldn't take off. So I'm in this great unscripted situation where I'm surrounded by these weird things with no weapon and no fuel. I had to wait for them to bugger off before I could jump out and get everything sorted. I thought that was great, and that's the joy I'm finding in this new version of No Man's Sky. I'm also finding a lot of joy in the planet variables and variation. Let's talk about that now, because that's what I wanted to take a deep dive on, is give those algorithms a chance to really show me some weird shit. And guys, I think we're there. I really think we're there at the variety span that we should have got on launch. It's great having volcanic planets, snow planets. There's all kinds of different biome descriptions now, tectonic planets, planets that are damp or dusty. It's really cool. It just used to be toxic, and maybe one with some blue grass, but they always had the little crazy sheep, lamb, goat mutants. You'll notice this from the footage, but the game constantly makes me stand still and take in my surroundings. It's also got one of the best ambient soundtracks ever. It's a whole mood and vibe, this game, and I'm going to get to the point of this towards the end of the video. But No Man's Sky has kind of become something else, and it's something that I've not played before, i.e. the game loop is completely different, and it's also very different to what it used to be on launch. Having this large amount of direction to go in, i.e. let's build a base, let's not go anywhere, let's develop our tech, or let's explore, let's go and find cool planets, or turning up the difficulty and make it into a survival game, or even just chilling with your mates on a singular planet and base building like you would in a game like Ark. And that's a really unique position for a space exploration game to be in. Think about it, Star Citizen, Elite Dangerous, they're all kind of sort of trying to do this. Star Citizen, maybe that's more focused on intergalactic battles, but the Horizon update for Elite Dangerous has now put landing on planets on it, and I feel like everybody's playing catch up, but I do know that No Man's Sky's mantra was about the planets and planetary discoveries in the first place, but it's just all the stuff they've bolted onto the outside of that idea has really become almost bigger than that idea itself. Let's get back to the planet variation algorithm, and there is our little friend right in front of me, and there is a guy over on the right that I remember seeing on day one. But look at the quality of this game's visuals now. The frame rates are smooth as hell. This is a PlayStation 4 Pro, and I've also got a surprise for you at the end of the video as well. We'll get to that in a second. But what I'm trying to say is, this is unrecognizable to the game I loaded up all those years ago. The only thing that brings me back down to the ground is our little friend. Flying has also become a complete pleasure. Of flying on top of the planets, that used to be awful, and popping stuff in, and sometimes the rendering and the surface textures were, it was just a mess. It all depended on what sort of planet it was that you landed on. Now it's standard smooth everywhere. You do see popping on the distance large structures. By the way, this is a webbing planet, I think it's called. All mechanical, all spherical, weird shit. It's like a Geiger planet. I go up and have a really good look at some of these things. And again, I've got to come back to that. That is the draw for me. When I play this game, I go into it and I can't get out of it, because I'm like, one more world, that next planet could be spectacular, and it could be a planet I want to settle on, find all my cool resources, and maybe make some new friends. Totally digging the electrical storms. They are new for me, and I'm totally digging the extremely extreme weather. Like, you can't even get out of your ship without your skin burning off your face. It's awesome to see the mist come in, these big storms come in, and of course all of these planets always have high resources, really cool stuff to get. And of course some of them got Sentinel activity on, which we haven't even got to yet, and that's kind of a big one for me. Kind of taken to taking off the HUD when I'm flying the ship, especially externally, just so you can see these beautiful vistas and also how they've implemented that mist and draw distance. Some of it probably helps with the pop-in issues, but it's really crisp and very smooth. Back to the ship upgrade thing, and I found a module that was a increased performance bolt-on for my boosters, and it just made my whole ship perform better. It wasn't something I went to the station to implement, so I was like, oh my god, so we can just, if we explore enough, we can just make ourselves badass without even having to buy a new ship. Talking of badass ships, you can buy the freighters, I knew all about that, but there's more depth with the freighter missions, there's more depth with who's in those freighters, and they look and sound phenomenal as well. I flew past one just to hear the aesthetics coming off it and the little crackle of voices on the radio. I thought I should start a fight with the Sentinels, see what the escalation was like, see if there's any difference. No major difference, but I wanted to see larger ones come after me, probably because I've not been to badass Sentinel planets, but that was an area that I felt was gimped on at the beginning of this game, was the Sentinels. Like, who are they? They're really mysterious, and it just didn't deliver enough for me. I'm still kind of feeling that way a little bit. I know there's probably more to be had on the story front for them, but it's great getting chased off the planet by them. Again, that's not new, but it brings me to the combat, and the combat wasn't majorly facelift from that next update, but it was a huge addition. It's not up there with Elite, but it certainly feels a lot more powerful and impactful, and you can switch out that rocket. Ridiculous, it needs nerfing. Nerf the rocket. Alright, let's get to the companion thing, because if you watched the previous video, I kind of brushed it off and was thinking it was a multiplayer gimmick. I thought you might just have a little like parrot on your shoulder or something that you had to pay a microtransaction for. I'm very pessimistic with that stuff. Man, talking of Ark. So this game's a bit, if you imagine my liking for this game a bit like the ground floor of a house, right? And so the space exploration is the kitchen, then you've got the combat over as the lounge. The developers have just opened a door at the back and gone, have you seen this massive room you've not been in? And it's going to be taming all of the animals on all of the planets. Get this, it doesn't matter, you just go up to any of them. So the algorithm can throw up the maddest stuff you can get on it. As long as you've got the pellets, you can just get on it and ride it around, they can run. If you make them your companion, your official companion, they have stress levels, they need to mate, they need to eat. Sometimes it's well glitchy when you get on them because I don't think they're designed to be mounted, but it's still great to walk around on these things. Look at this. Did you ever think No Man's Sky would become a giant crab racing game? And that's probably what you can do on the multiplayer, so forgive my excitement, but this was an area I was so pleasantly surprised by, and it's now given me even more incentive to get back in my ship, find some cool aliens to sort of bolt stuff onto and make my companion. Please forgive my HDR bleed outs here, but I want to do a nice pan around and do you mind just say that I'm somewhere else now with No Man's Sky. I'm in this new area, I'm in the new back kitchen that I'm going to spend so much time exploring just on its own merit. And to have all these quality of life changes to the crafting, to the construction, to the ship upgrading, just means that that is so much more easier an area for me to explore. This was also kind of a new experience for me, and it's an ad hoc trader visiting you during a warp or when you're in a new galaxy. They'll come up and actually have items that the normal stations may not have. That's definitely something new. I may not have got to it in Next, but it's really cool to have that ad hoc chance to buy or sell commodities at a really high return. GameStop. Those events are obviously scripted, and one of the other things is protecting the freighters. You'll come into a new galaxy and it will all be kicking off, and you have to defend basically the freighter, and you get really cool reward points for it on the reputation front. I was shitting myself that I was shooting the wrong person and I might start some sort of war, but it was okay. You only target the enemy, but it's okay how they push those in. I'd like to see a bit more of them, and I'd like them to feel a little bit more ad hoc. There was a chap in the comments talking about the derelict freighters and missions on them and going inside them on foot and taking weapons and finding cool loot and expensive items. That would be a massive incentive for me, so I'm going to keep going and start looking for those. What we're looking at here, this is my one crash screen. I had it crash once. The game's very good on autosave. Sometimes it was 25 minutes. It will tell you the last time it's saved before you quit the game. But this was to do with me going into the back of a carrier and getting sucked in and sort of mucking it up a bit. That was the only crash I had in this 9.5 hour new playthrough. Certainly couldn't say that about it week of launch or even first year of launch. Alright, so here's my closing comment. No Man's Sky is now a survival base builder set in space, right? It's moved away from its procedural algorithm planet discovery selling point, which is still there majorly, and moved into the more invest some time and play this with your mates and get a cool base going area, which is a very welcome direction for it, and surprisingly enough, it totally works, which makes it this brand new thing. There's no other games out there that are anything like this, that look and sound and play like this. It really is a special product, born of years of feedback, that's now become this amazing, unique thing. It's such a cool story. Now here's the surprise. I've got a PlayStation 5 sitting next to me. It's now wearing away, downloading everything that I own, which is 272 games. But not all of them will be on there because I've nearly run out of space already. But what I'm going to do is play No Man's Sky immediately. I've looked into some of the performance boosts on the system. I think there'll also be a PlayStation 5 targeted patch from Hello Games eventually. But I'm going to explore how much improvement we see there, and I'm going to explore Cyberpunk 2077 on the PlayStation 5. I'm actually going to see some decent frame rates, and we've got COD split screen zombies coming up, and Dirt 5 is split screen. See you down there.